Level 1, Michael Schumacher. Let's start at the top. 7 world championships, 2 different eras, 1 undeniable legacy. Michael Schumacher is level 1. Schumacher's championship career is split into 2 completely different chapters. The first came with Bennett in 1994 and 1995. Those titles were controversial, dramatic, and hard-fought. The 1994 season especially remains one of the most debated championships in Formula One history. But regardless of the controversy, they proved something crucial. Schumacher was already one of the best drivers in the world. Fast, aggressive, and willing to do whatever it took to win. Then came the move that changed Formula One forever. In 1996, Schumacher joined Ferrari. At the time, Ferrari was struggling badly. They hadn't won a championship in nearly 2 decades. The team was a mess. The morale was low, the pressure was enormous, and Schumacher didn't just join them to collect a paycheck. He rebuilt them from the ground up. It took 4 years of building, learning, testing, and developing. Schumacher worked tirelessly with technical director Ross Brawn and designer Rory Byrne. He pushed the engineers, he demanded perfection, he tested more than any other driver, and then in 2000 it all clicked. Schumacher won his first championship with Ferrari, and then he won again in 2001, in 2002, and 2003, and 2004, 5 championships in a row. 5 years of complete, suffocating dominance. This wasn't just about having the fastest car. Schumacher was the reason Ferrari had the fastest car. He didn't just drive it, he built it. Ferrari's success in the early 2000s wasn't just a team effort, it was Schumacher's vision brought to life. The 2004 season might be the most dominant individual performance in Formula One history. Schumacher won 13 out of 18 races. He finished on the podium in every single race except one. The title was wrapped up with 4 races to spare. His closest rival finished over 30 points behind. It wasn't a competition, it was a demonstration, a masterclass in what happens when the best driver gets the best car. That's why Schumacher is level 1. 7 championships, yes, but it's not just the number, it's how he got them. 2 titles with Bennett proved his talent. 5 titles with Ferrari proved his greatness. He didn't just win, he built a dynasty. He took a broken team and turned them into an unstoppable force. He changed Ferrari's culture, he changed their identity. And even today, Ferrari fans still dream of finding another Schumacher. Even now, nearly 2 decades after his final championship, Schumacher's name still defines what it means to be a Formula One legend. 7 titles, 2 eras, 1 undeniable truth. Michael Schumacher is the architect of greatness, and nobody has matched what he built. Level 2, Lewis Hamilton. 7 world championships, only 2 drivers in history have reached this number. Lewis Hamilton is the second one. Hamilton's first championship came in 2008 with McLaren. He was just 23 years old and he became the youngest world champion at the time. That title fight went down to the final corner of the final lap of the final race in Brazil. Hamilton needed to finish 5th, he was running 6th. On the last corner of the last lap, he overtook Timo Glock and crossed the line in 5th, by 1 position. By seconds, it was chaos, it was a drama, it was destiny. Felipe Massa had already crossed the line first, thinking he was champion. For 30 seconds, Ferrari celebrated, and then reality hit. But 2008 was just the beginning. In 2013, Hamilton made a decision that shocked the entire paddock. He left McLaren, the team that raised him since he was 13 years old, and joined Mercedes. At the time, Mercedes wasn't dominant. They hadn't won a championship in decades. Nico Rosberg was already there and the team was building something, but it wasn't proven yet. People questioned the move. They called it risky. They wondered if Hamilton had made a massive mistake leaving a proven winning team for an unknown project. He hadn't. He'd made the greatest career decision in Formula One history. From 2014 to 2020, Hamilton won 6 more championships with Mercedes. The hybrid era belonged to him. The partnership between Hamilton and Mercedes became the most successful driver-team combination in the sport's history. 84 wins together, 6 titles in 7 years, complete and utter domination. The only year he didn't win between 2014 and 2020 was 2016, when his teammate Nico Rosberg beat him by 5 points and immediately retired. Hamilton didn't just win, he rewrote the record books entirely. Most wins in Formula One history, most pole positions, most podiums. The numbers are absurd, over 100 wins, over 100 poles, nearly 200 podiums. By the time the 2020s began, Hamilton had cemented himself as one of the 2 greatest drivers Formula One has ever seen. But here's why Hamilton is level 2 and not level 1, his C. Then championships are tied with Michael Schumacher. And while Hamilton's statistics are incredible, arguably even more impressive than Schumacher's in raw numbers, his legacy is defined by 1 team, 1 era, and 1 dominant car. The Mercedes hybrid era from 2014 to 2020 was the most dominant period any team has ever had. The Mercedes W11 in 2020 might be the most dominant Formula One car ever built. Hamilton drove it to perfection, but he also had the perfect weapon at the perfect time. Schumacher built Ferrari from the ground up. Hamilton joined Mercedes at the exact moment the hybrid era began and maximized the opportunity brilliantly. Both are legendary, both have 7 titles, both changed the sport, but the context gives Schumacher the edge. Schumacher created dominance, Hamilton inherited a platform and maximized it, and that context is why Hamilton sits at level 2, still one of the greatest ever, still a 7-time champion. Still the most statistically successful driver in history, but just barely edged out by the architect himself. Level 3, Juan Manuel Fangio. 5 world championships. Only one man in Formula One history has exactly 5 titles. Juan Manuel Fangio. Fangio's championships came in the 1950s, the earliest and most dangerous years of Formula One: 1951, 1954, 1955, 1956, and 1957. But here's what makes his legacy truly unique and almost mythical. He didn't win those 5 championships with one dominant team. He won them with 4 different teams. 1951 with Alfa Romeo, 1954 split between Maserati and Mercedes, 1955 with Mercedes, 1956 with Ferrari, 1957 with Maserati again. Think about that for a second. In an era where cars were unreliable, dangerous, and wildly different from team to team, Fangio switched teams constantly and kept winning. That's not luck, that's not the circumstance, that's pure undiluted skill. The 1950s were a brutal, unforgiving time to race. No safety regulations, no runoff areas, no barriers, drivers died regularly. Multiple drivers die every single year. Cars broke down constantly. Mechanical failures were the norm, not the exception. And yet Fangio won 5 championships across 7 years. His consistency in an era of absolute chaos is almost impossible to comprehend. What makes Fangio's achievement even more remarkable is that he didn't start his Formula One career until he was nearly 40 years old. He was already considered past his prime when he entered the sport, and then he proceeded to dominate it for the next 7 years. Even today, nearly 70 years later, Fangio's achievement feels completely untouchable. Winning 5 titles with 4 different teams in the modern era, it's not happening. The sport has changed too much, teams are too specialized, contracts are too long, drivers stay with one team for years, sometimes their entire careers trying to build something. Fangio just showed up, adapted instantly, and won, repeatedly. With completely different cars, different teams, different engineers, different philosophies. That's why he's level 3. 5 championships is elite. Only 3 men in history have 5 or more, but 5 championships across 4 different teams. That's not just the elite, that's an anomaly. That's a record that might genuinely stand forever. Fangio proved that in the early dangerous days of Formula One, driver skill mattered more than anything else. More than the car, more than the team, more than the technology. And his skill was simply unmatched. He remains the only driver to win championships with 4 different constructors. Nobody has even come close to repeating it. Level 4, Alain Prost. From here on out, we're into the 4-time champions, and leading this group is a driver who completely redefined what it meant to be intelligent behind the wheel. Alain Prost. Prost wasn't flashy. He didn't drive with raw emotion and fearless aggression like some of his rivals. Prost was calculated, intelligent, precise. That's why they called him the Professor. And over the course of his career, he proved that racing isn't just about speed. It's about strategy. It's about managing tires, managing fuel, managing risk. It's about finishing first when it matters most, not being fastest at every single moment. Prost won 4 world championships, 3 with McLaren in 1985, 1986, and 1989. His rivalry with Ayrton Senna during the late 80s and early 90s is one of the most iconic, intense, and bitter rivalries in sports history. They collided on track, they fought off track, they genuinely hated each other. Senna was fiery and passionate, Prost was ice and calculation. And through it all, Prost kept winning by simply outsmarting everyone. His final championship came in 1993 with Williams. He'd taken a full year off after leaving Ferrari in 1991, burned out and frustrated. And when he returned in 1993, he immediately proved he was still at the very top of the sport. That Williams FW15C was dominant, the most technologically advanced car of its time. But Prost still had to deliver, and he did, flawlessly. He won 7 races that year and clinched the title with 1 race remaining. What makes Prost level 4 is his incredible consistency over an entire era. He wasn't just good for 4 years, he was elite for well over a decade. From the mid-80s all the way to the early 90s, Prost was always in the fight, always competitive, always dangerous. He didn't need to be the fastest on any given lap, he just needed to be the smartest, the most consistent over an entire season. And time after time, year after year, he was. Prost finished his career with 51 wins and 106 podiums. Those numbers were records at the time. He was the most successful driver in Formula One history when he retired. His legacy as one of the greatest ever is completely secure. 4 championships, calculated brilliance, consistency that spanned a decade. That's level 4. Level 5, Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel's entire championship legacy is tied to one team and one era, Red Bull Racing. From 2010 to 2013, Vettel won 4 consecutive world championships. 4 years of complete dominance. 4 years where the rest of the grid showed up knowing second place was the absolute best they could realistically hope for. Vettel's first title in 2010 was dramatic and tense. It came down to the final race in Abu Dhabi, and Vettel snatched it from Fernando Alonso in the closing stages of the season. Alonso had led the championship for most of the year, but Vettel closed strong. But after that first dramatic title, it was clinical. In 2011, he absolutely destroyed everyone, 15 pole position, 11 wins. He won the championship with 4 races remaining. 2012 was closer. He fought off Alonso again in one of the closest, most intense title battles in Formula One history. And then 2013, he won 13 races and made it look effortless. Red Bull had the fastest car during this entire period. That's undeniable. Adrian Newey's design genius gave them an aerodynamic advantage nobody could match, but Vettel still had to execute, and he did, every single weekend. His qualifying pace was absolutely lethal, his consistency was robotic, his ability to manage races from the front was flawless. When he had the best car, he maximized every single opportunity. That's what champions do. The question that follows Vettel, though, is this: could he have won titles without the dominant Red Bull? He spent years at Ferrari from 2015 to 2020 chasing that elusive 5th championship and never got it. Mistakes crept in, bad luck haunted him, questionable strategies from Ferrari hurt him, and when the pressure was highest, he made errors. By the time he left Ferrari, his reputation had taken a serious hit. He was no longer seen as the untouchable 4-time champion. He was the guy who couldn't quite get it done when he didn't have the best car. But 4 consecutive championships, that's still absolutely legendary. That's still a level of dominance most drivers will never even come close to. Vettel sits at level 5 because he proved he could win. He proved he could dominate when given the right tools. He just couldn't prove he could do it outside of that perfect Red Bull era. And that's ultimately what separates him from the drivers ranked above him. Level 6, Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen is the driver who's currently terrorizing the entire Formula One grid, 4 world championships. And he's nowhere even close to being done yet. Verstappen's championship journey started in 2021. And if you watched that season, you know exactly why it's already considered legendary. The title fight with Lewis Hamilton went down to the final lap of the final race. Abu Dhabi 2021, one of the most dramatic, controversial, and absolutely unforgettable moments in Formula One history. Verstappen overtook Hamilton on brand new soft tires in the very last lap and won his first championship. Hamilton fans are still furious about it. Verstappen fans absolutely don't care. But here's the thing about Max Verstappen. After 2021, after that controversial first title, he didn't just defend it. He didn't just prove it wasn't a fluke. He completely and utterly annihilated the competition. In 2022, he won his second championship convincingly. And then in 2023, he broke records that people thought would never be broken. 19 wins out of 22 races. Winning races by 30, 40, sometimes even 50 seconds. It wasn't racing, it was a procession. It was domination on a level the sport hadn't seen since Schumacher's peak. Red Bull had the fastest car in 2023, absolutely. But Verstappen still had to deliver every single weekend. And he did. He didn't make mistakes. He didn't crack under pressure. He was perfect. And by 2024, he'd secured his 4th title, making him one of only 5 drivers ever to reach that mark. At just 27 years old, Verstappen is already in the same conversation as Prost, Vettel, and the other 4-time champions. And he's not done yet. Not even close. The scary part, he's still improving, still finding margins that don't seem to exist. Still showing up to races like he's got something to prove even though he's already proven absolutely everything. Max Verstappen is level 6 because he represents both the present and the future of Formula One. 4 titles by his mid-20s. If he keeps this pace for another 5 years, he might not stop at 7. He might rewrite the entire record book. He might become the most dominant driver the sport has ever seen. For now, he's the modern dominator, the current king, and the rest of the grid is just desperately hoping Red Bull finally builds a slower car so someone else has a chance. Level 7, Ayrton Senna. And now we reach level 7, the driver who proves beyond any doubt that championships aren't everything. Ayrton Senna won 3 world titles, just 3, and yet decades after his tragic death, his name still carries more weight, more respect, more reverence than drivers with twice as many trophies. Senna won all 3 of his championships with McLaren, 1988, 1990, and 1991. On paper, that's a very solid career. 3 titles is elite. But in reality, it's just the statistical beginning of a legend that goes far beyond numbers, because Senna wasn't just fast, he was possessed. The man drove like the laws of physics simply didn't apply to him. Rain, it didn't matter. He'd lapped the entire field at Monaco in the wet like he was the only driver who could actually see the track clearly. His 1984 Monaco performance in a Toleman, where he nearly won in terrible conditions, announced him to the world. His 1988 pole lap at Monaco, where he went into what he described as an out-of-body experience, remains the most talked-about qualifying lap in history. His qualifying performances were genuinely supernatural. 65 pole positions. He didn't just beat his rivals in qualifying, he embarrassed them, humiliated them. Drivers would watch his onboard footage and genuinely wonder how he was finding grip where there physically wasn't any. It looked like magic. It felt like destiny. He pushed beyond what seemed possible. But here's what makes Senna level 7. It's not the 3 titles, as impressive as they are. It's the aura, it's the mystique. It's the fact that even drivers who never raced against him, drivers who were born after he died, still talk about him like he's completely untouchable. It's the way his rivalry with Alain Prost became the defining story of an entire era of Formula One. It's the passion, the intensity, the absolute refusal to accept second place. It's the legacy that survived unimaginable tragedy and somehow grew even bigger after his death. Senna's career ended at Imola in 1994. The Tamburello corner, and the sport never quite felt the same after that weekend. The entire sport changed. Safety became a priority. The FIA was forced to act. And Senna's legend only grew. 3 championships, infinite impact. That's why he's immortal. That's why he sits at level 7. Not because of what he won, but because of what he represented to millions of people around the world. Pure, unfiltered racing talent, passion, and the pursuit of perfection, no matter the cost. From Schumacher's 7 titles that built an empire at Ferrari, all the way to Senna's 3 that transcended the sport entirely and became something bigger than racing. These are the 7 levels of Formula One championship greatness. Some drivers define eras, some drivers define themselves, and some drivers define what it means to be truly untouchable. So which level impressed you the most? Do you think Verstappen will eventually climb all the way to level 1 by the time he retires? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.